This is a story of a surfer named Brian. He had recently switched from shortboarding to longboarding due to an amazing nose riding experience. He had learned that nose riding is like standing on the edge of a cliff with nothing but utter mayhem in front of you. Yet somehow, your board locks in place and you effortlessly stand there in amazement. So what was Brian's problem? He was so eager to nose ride that he relied on his natural athleticism to get him to the nose, which caused a plethora of issues. That's a long way of saying that I am a natural-born rusher. I rush everything that I do. And when it comes to longboarding, that is the wrong way to go about it. There are a few key areas in longboarding that if we slow things down, everything becomes much easier and you actually improve faster. So don't let the word slow scare you. I've had much better longboarders than me tell me, Brian, you should slow things down. And the second I heard the word slow, I zoned out immediately. But don't worry, because in this case, slow equals fast. I'd say in about another hour, the wave should be good. So I got about an hour to kill. And while I wait, I might as well check a few more places. So to get to the nose, we first have to set up our board properly, which means we take off on the wave, we do our bottom turn, which naturally slows the board down, and then we start trying to get our board to slowly travel up the wave. It's at this point where we would start our cross steps, which for most people is about 4 steps to the nose. So the first area to slow down is the board setup itself. And there's a Christmas tree on the beach for some reason. When Tommy from 10 Toe Surf reviewed some footage of me, one of the first exercises he gave me was to focus only on setting up the board for a nose ride. When we're trying to get to the nose, there are so many things going through our heads that we end up rushing one of the most important parts, which is the setup. Now, when I rush the bottom turn, I typically get the board traveling up the wave too fast, which leads to very unbalanced cross steps, or I just lose the wave altogether. When I focus solely on the bottom turn and getting the board traveling up slowly, that's when my cross steps are the most stable. So now theoretically you have the board set up properly and it's in perfect trim, but your job is not over yet. The next area to slow down are the steps themselves. There's a fox over here. I don't think I've ever seen a fox around here. Now, as I've said many times before, every time you take a new cross step, that new step is now responsible for keeping the rail engaged with the face of the wave. So to explain this next part, let's hop over to the studio. This here is the face of the wave. So the wave is going that way. And if you can imagine, we are surfing into the whiteboard. So we are surfing this way. Now when our board is set up properly, that inside rail will be dug into the face of the wave like this. So here is our inside rail. There's our outside rail. The only thing keeping this rail engaged with the face of the wave is pressure from our feet. If we rush the cross steps, we tend to jump a bit, which means for a split second, nothing is touching the board. When nothing is touching the board, this board will just... The first thing I would tell a new longboarder to do if they're just starting to get into cross-stepping is practice surfing the whole wave in a cross-stepped position. Now, this is one of the hardest drills to do because we think we're wasting a wave, but it is far from a waste. This drill is one of the most efficient ways to get your body and your brain used to being in that cross-stepped position. If you try this drill a few times, I can guarantee the next time you start cross-stepping, you're gonna be so much more confident. Now, when you feel confident cross-stepping and confident with the bottom turn and getting the board set up, then you're ready for this next drill, which I call the 2-step forward, 2-step back method. I was gonna put the Solo Fin's pivot fin on, but the waves are a little bit too big. Gonna have to stick with the 4A. When they're big and unpredictable, 4A is the way to go. When the waves are clean and longboard friendly, this is the way to go. Now the way this drill works is you take off on the wave, you do your bottom turn, you take your first step. Now, after you take your first step, you do a trim check. Make sure you're in trim, and then you take your second step. What happens to most surfers is that second step, let's say you're a goofy footer, it'll tend to be to the right of your first step. And if you're a regular footer, it'll tend to be to the left of your first step. It takes a whole lot of willpower to get that step to be in line, but that's the purpose of this drill. Focus on getting your first 2 steps perfect, in control, then you take your back steps, rinse, and repeat. I'm just checking the waves one last time before I officially commit to this location. And I hope I did commit to this location because I already took my board off. So the last 2 steps are another area surfers tend to struggle. Typically, right before we take our last 2, we're in a very critical part of the wave, and it just feels weird and scary. What I end up doing is just rushing the last 2 and basically running to the nose, which leads to very unbalanced steps and also very ugly ones. However, this is when we need to keep our composure and realize the last 2 are just like the first 2. Rail engagement. You keep that rail engaged and keep the board in perfect trim, and those last 2 steps are easy. Just like the exercise we talked about in the beginning where you take your first step and you ride the whole wave like that, do the same thing with the third step. Take that third step, hold it, and you'll realize how much control you still have in a seemingly chaotic position. All right, I'm about ready to go out. Now, we covered getting to the nose, but if you really want hang 10s, you gotta be in a very specific part of the wave. So make sure you watch this video next where professional longboarder Ben Considine gave me an amazing drill to do just that.